Hello, Kiara, and welcome back to the Well Vegan Travel Podcast.
Hi, thank you so much for having me for part two.
I know this is so exciting. I don't think we've ever done anything like this before, which is basically like a before and after a big trip. Kiara, before we get into that, for anyone who hasn't listened to part one yet, maybe they should go back and listen to it. But could you introduce yourself a little and tell us about the trip you have just returned from?
Yes, amazing. Hi, everyone. My name is Kiara Sylvie Durbin. I am an artist, adventurer, human. I'm an actor in the Cleveland theater scene and a vegan travel creator, navigating life, newly graduated out of school. My trip was huge, so I'm going to try to summarize it as best I can. I left my full-time job to fly across the world to Australia to visit an online friend I had never met in person before.
Oh, wow.
Yes, I stayed with her and her family for 2 weeks. I visited an old college friend in the Brisbane area, including Kangaluma Island for a week. I flew by myself to New Zealand. I bus tripped through the North Island through Kiwi Experience. And then I road tripped the South Island with another friend, lots of friends, for 10 days through the South Island. Flew back to the North Island, visited a friend on the east coast of the North Island in a beach town, stayed with her rurally for a little bit, flew back to Auckland, LAX, DC, and then did two more trips because I'm crazy. But it was a lot of fun. And there's a lot to talk about.
Wow, that is pretty epic. And this was one of the first really big trips that you have done independently, right?
Yes, completely planned it on my own.
Fabulous, fabulous. So, when we spoke a few months ago now, we were talking about those feelings that you have in the lead up to this trip. You were talking about how you felt a little bit anxious. I mean, of course, that's completely understandable. What was it like to actually get on the plane where you spent all of this time like planning and then you finally get on the plane and like it's happening?
Oh my gosh, Friday, I was so giddy, nervous. I felt like I was in a movie walking through the airport. I've always loved gallivanting through airports by myself. Like when you think you're going to miss your flight and you're running through the airport. I love it so much. So I really lucked out. I had a lovely New Zealand couple next to me on my way to Australia that laughed at me when I spilled water on myself. It was a whole beautiful, magical adventure.
Fabulous. And I mean, I don't know about you, but when I'm gearing up to go on a trip, even though I've done it many times, I'm always feeling a little bit anxious in the lead up. But then when I finally get on the plane, it's just like this, okay, well, it's too late now. You may as well just relax. I'm sure you've prepared well and now be in the moment and then try to enjoy it.
Yeah, especially when someone's picking you up at the airport. That's really nice.
Yeah, that really is nice. Not having to navigate like buses into the city or
Absolutely.
transfers or anything like that. Very cool. So, I mean, you did so many things on this trip. What were some of the biggest highlights of this trip and why were they so amazing?
I vividly remember my first kangaroo encounter in the countryside heading towards the Grampians in Australia. I saw some kangaroos on the side of the road and I went, "Kangaroo, stop the car!" And we all had to stop the car and I got out to take pictures of the kangaroos. They're so funny. I was just laughing at them as they hopped around. They were little joeys. They weren't the big ones that were going to beat me up. So it was safe. It was cool. Honestly, it was staying with my beautiful friend Celia and her family in Australia. I think the local experience is underrated. We see all the big things on social media. We see the go, go, go. Let's go see the Eiffel Tower. Let's go on this big hike. But the experiences I'll remember being with her family in the backyard, making up dances, singing together, going to their local Passover. Those almost mundane things were really special to me.
Right. Oh, how
Yeah. And
lovely.
building that connection. I changed my whole trip around talking about big experiences for Hobbiton in New Zealand. That was a dream
Okay.
come true. And probably the most beautiful part of New Zealand for me was Glenorchy and Kinloch in the South Island. Very secluded, and we timed it going into autumn. So it was a little chilly, but the snow capping
Mm.
the mountains was just lovely. It was just beautiful.
Oh, that does sound lovely. New Zealand is such an amazing place. I'm so thrilled you got to experience both islands and spend time with friends there. Yeah, it's gorgeous.
Yeah, I could jump from highlight to highlight to highlight, but then we'd be here for 5 hours. So
So, I know when before you went on the trip, you did a huge amount of planning and research. Maybe would you mind sharing with our listeners what were the really good things to come out of doing that kind of planning? Maybe there were some things you would skip next time. I don't know off the top of my head, but maybe, you planned to visit, made a big long list of restaurants or particular experiences, but then maybe you overplanned so you couldn't be spontaneous. That's just an example of something that it might be. I don't want to put words in your mouth. But what aspects of the planning did you do that served you and which did not serve you?
of course, I had a huge outline called The Land Down Under with Hobbits. It was 20 pages long, outlined everywhere I was going, everywhere I was staying, maybe ideas of things I wanted to do in certain places. But I found it very helpful to have a huge set plan, especially knowing where I was staying. And once that was checked marked, everything was pretty flexible. A
Right.
couple times I couldn't access the master document because it was online. So maybe
Okay.
have a physical copy of important tickets and emails and stuff. But like we kind of chatted about last time, since I had a guide, since I knew where I was near, that was helpful in keeping it loose and spontaneous, but knowing that I had a structure.
Right. So I'm guessing you had like, okay, we're going to be in Brisbane. I would love to go and do these 10 things. And you can sit down with your friend and you're like, okay, this is what I'd like to do. And maybe they can help you say, well, this makes sense to do on this day because it's open. And then you could fit in this afterwards that day. I guess something like that would be helpful.
Yes,
Yeah.
so helpful to
It's
have friends.
Yeah, it's funny. Like, we sometimes have people come and visit us, and I don't know what they're thinking, but we live in a place where there's a lot to see and do. And they arrive, and we're like, okay, what do you want to do? And they don't really know. I'm like, okay, well,
You tell me.
I don't mind helping them and suggesting them, but I often find we'll have a huge amount of conversation back and forth thinking about this and talking about this, and we could have eliminated a bit of that, but it's their holiday, they can do what you want. But I like this idea of having like a sort of almost like a menu to choose from in each destination that you're going
Exactly.
to, so that you can decide, okay, I woke up, I'm feeling a little tired, maybe I can do something like this today.
Yeah, and you know what's fun is when you know your location so well that then somebody coming in having these new ideas, like me for my friend in Australia, they had never done these things before. There was a
Right.
little French architecture art studio place called Montsalvat that my friend had never heard of that I brought to the table and that we then did. And then she got to explore her kind of hometown area as well.
Yes. Yeah. And I always find when we have people come to visit us, even if we've done this 10 times before, I really love it. I get to see it through their eyes and it gets me reappreciating where I live. So I don't mind going back to the same place time and time again. It's so fun. And it's really fun that your friend learnt a little bit more of their city as well. Very cool.
Yeah, go visit your friend, folks.
So I'm wondering whether there were any situations where things did not go according to plan.
There were plenty of things. Immediately landing in New Zealand, we got a cyclone warning,
Oh,
which
wow.
I don't know if you know like the iPhone Amber Alert sound that's like, bring, bring.
Yes.
It had to go off on everyone's phones twice on the airplane after everyone turned on their phones. So just think apocalyptic Amber Alert cyclone sounds. You're landing in a new country, thousands of miles away from home.
Wow, that is pretty wild. What did you think in that moment? Did you think it
I
was
was
like
like,
a
of course.
supernatural disaster?
Of course, this is happening. But it turned out being a really casual cyclone, not for some people, but for me, because the Kiwi experience trip I ended up doing, they turned around their itinerary for us. We ended up going to Rotorua for 3 nights instead of 2, instead of going to the beach where we were supposed to. So that went wrong. We navigated around it. We ended up changing our plans completely later in the trip in the South Island. Instead of taking a bus trip from Queenstown to Milford Sound, we kept meeting people that told us, if you have a car, why are you taking a bus trip? Like, take your own car so you have your own flexibility and make it a couple nights so you can spend more time there. So that's one of those experiences where I would say, know when you can cancel, know your refundable date. A lot of hostels as well, you have to pay more for your night to be refundable sometimes. So just pay attention to the print. We ended up canceling the bus trip the day before, getting our money back, staying in Tianu instead of Queenstown an extra night. And the hostel was really nice because we were past the refundable date. But since we booked directly with them and we were already staying with them another night, they were kind and gave us that extra night.
Right.
The trip completely changed from my master document, and it actually went well.
Really, that's really good. Yeah, I think that they can be quite, providers can be accommodating if there's some sort of like weather event that's happening that means that people just can't go there. And I guess if you can't go there, that's a way that you can draw on your travel insurance, assuming that you have travel insurance that will cover those kinds of trip interruption things. So you can make a claim. Of course, the best thing is to still be able to do the things that you really want to do, that you traveled all that way, but it makes you feel better about, you know, not losing the money, I guess.
Yeah, 100%.
Of course, this trip was about spending time with old friends and meeting new friends that you had met online. But I'm wondering whether you were able to meet people while you were traveling, because you were staying in a lot of hostels, so maybe that was helpful. I did a lot of hostels when I was younger, so I'm just wondering how it is these days with meeting people when you're traveling.
Yeah, every hostel is different, I'm sure. I really loved staying in haka houses in New Zealand.
Okay.
I
What are
really
haka
recommend
houses?
them. It's a hostel, but they just have them all over. They're really clean, nice, neat, semi-quiet. They were very nice. Like you said, I loved seeing my people in their natural element and exploring with them, but it was really nice to so easily meet new people because everyone is traveling because they want expansion and newness, and everyone is so open to creating new connections, almost to the point where you have to decide when you're done meeting people and where your boundaries lie. Because when you travel, I think it's really cool. You get to redefine yourself. You're no longer tied to the relationships that you have back at home or home at all. You're kind of no one. And that can be very scary, but also very freeing in a lot of ways. And in that, I got to relearn about myself, completely starting from a blank slate. And of course, it's really cool to be sharing room with someone from Ireland, someone from the Netherlands, someone from Switzerland. And you're not the American in that quad. You're all just humans sharing space together.
Right.
It's really neat.
Ah, I love that. Well, I'm very pleased to hear that the hostel vibe is still nice and social. I kind of, as I was asking that question, I was wondering maybe it's not like that anymore because people have their phones and they have this bit of technology that's so entertaining in front of them. And, I can imagine people going to bed early and watching their shows in bed rather than, staying and having a couple of drinks around the campfire, for example. But maybe there was some of that, but I'm pleased to hear that young people are still having a ton of fun and being social in hostels. That's great to hear.
And it's definitely what you make of it, too. I'm sure there were plenty of people who closed their curtain and didn't want to talk to me, but there are also people who are just dying to make that social connection with someone from across the world.
That's awesome. So you were traveling on a budget, and I'm wondering if you can tell us about what you did to make the trip more affordable, and maybe some of the items or the experiences that you splashed out on a little bit to make the trip what it was for you.
I would say, like we talked about, go visit your friends because you can stay with them for free. Also, hostels, like we talked about, getting into travel credit cards. 2 years ago, I knew nothing about credit cards, and I took it upon myself to become financially savvy, start building a travel fund for myself, because that's something I knew I was very passionate about. My flight to Australia was free because I had travel points.
Wow, well done.
Thank you very much. It was nice. The currency difference for me, the New Zealand dollar is 60% of a US dollar. So sorry, Kiwis who want to come to the US, but the other way around, you're getting a pretty good deal. And budget travel is something I'm very passionate about, so I'm sure I'll talk about it more on my own time. But it also makes the luxury splurges that you do for yourself all the more wonderful when you finally get that moment of peace in an Airbnb looking over the river, or you booked that massage and facial for yourself at the onsen, and it was so wonderful because you've been staying in hostels for the last week.
Do you have any tips for people staying in hostels? And also, how much is the going rate for a hostel these days? When I was staying in them, they were like $20 a night. That was a while ago, of course.
In New Zealand, I think they're 90 New Zealand dollars.
Wow. Holy dooly, that's more.
It could get up there, but I remember paying 30 to 40 US dollars. I think New Zealand is a little bit more pricey, but in terms of choosing hostels, knowing what to do in hostels, there's no science to it. Sometimes you just pick a place and sometimes it goes bad, sometimes it goes well. But the main thing that I learned was you're allowed to take up space. I was like afraid to breathe, afraid to move, but everyone's in it together. So you are allowed to take the space as long as you're being respectful and maybe being quiet past 10 o'clock.
Did you find any things that people would do very frustrating? For example, I remember when I was hosteling, I would call them the plastic bag rustlers.
Oh my gosh.
Because they would put stuff in plastic shopping bags that are notoriously noisy in a quiet space. And then they would be packing their bag 5 o'clock in the morning because they have an early start. And just this crackling just went through the whole room. It really irritated me. I mean, I liked hosteling in so many other reasons, but that was something that really bugged me. I couldn't understand, like, if you've got plastic bags, do what you need to do with them when people are not sleeping, for heaven's sake.
Yes. Like when you're watching a show and someone takes 10 years to unwrap their candy wrapper and you're like, just do it and be done with it. Just do it and be done with it. Yeah, I fear I may have been the plastic bag person once or twice.
Everyone is.
You kind of do what you have to do, but being as respectful as possible. My first hostel, I was so nervous to do anything that might be considered rude, I literally took all of my stuff outside of the room at 5 a.m. and put it outside and packed my bag outside the room. I did
That
that a
is
couple
actually
times.
very thoughtful. That is very
Thank
thoughtful.
you. I did it just for you, for the anti-plastic baggers. I feel like I was very fortunate. Mostly, I felt like I was being noisy and everyone else was like really keeping to themselves. It's hard when you don't have a breakthrough with anyone, especially when other people are traveling together. They're kind of a unit, and I found that when I was
Right.
traveling with other people. But often when you see solo travelers, like my experience in Lake Taupo, which maybe I'll talk about later, with this wonderful human, Yulia, we were both just looking for connection, and we went to the grocery store together, and she was part Italian and made me practice my Italian with her, even though it was so embarrassing. And we just stayed up talking on my bed, and she had moved there and had been working at fruit farms and tenting on people's property to make ends meet. And you gained so much exposure to how other people live in the world. It's just so beautiful.
Fabulous, fabulous. And how was it being a vegan traveling around? I'm imagining in hostels that you were maybe self-catering quite a bit. How was finding those kinds of supplies and just generally eating around countryside and touristy Australia and New Zealand?
Well, you were right. I did not go hungry. I maybe had some lackluster meals here and there, but I always had something. I prepared for the worst to allow myself to be pleasantly surprised. I found myself really bulking up at grocery stores, like protein bars, nuts, making sure I had peanut butter and jelly. And I went for peanut butter and jelly and tortillas a lot. But I found you also don't want to be bulked up too much because I was traveling with a lot of food, and at one point it all got thrown away. My hostel accidentally threw away all my food. So you want to be careful with that. But one of my hobbies, even here at home, is hanging out in grocery stores for an hour and exploring all the things that are vegan. I think it's a very exciting scavenger hunt as well.
Right.
I managed to make ends meet, even if it was microwavable rice and a curry at a hostel.
And were you able to eat out at all? And if so, were there any standout places?
I was able to eat out quite a bit because I was prepared and knew where I was near. There was a place called Bellin in Wellington that had the most amazing vegan donuts. That was a real treat. I would like to shout out Wanaka in New Zealand. They have the coolest food truck scene, and pretty much every little food truck or booth had something vegan that I could have. I really tried to prepare so I would be near someplace, which was helpful for Kiwi experience when I was just in a place for one day and needed a lunch, something like that. But there are also plenty of times where I feel like I had a vegan sixth sense almost and walked directly to the Union kiosk in Melbourne. Oh, it's a completely vegan place. Wonderful. I was literally on top of a mountain after finishing a hike at Roy's Peak. And there's this dude from Texas who recommended this burrito place on top of the mountain. And they had vegan options, which was really cool.
That is fun. That is fun. So not every trip goes according to plan. I'm thinking about what we pack and what we forget to pack, or maybe packing too much. Do you have any packing regrets or any packing recommendations?
My number one need when I travel is a collapsible Tupperware. One collapsible Tupperware. That does me great wherever I go. I totally did not pack well for New Zealand, I will say. I packed for Australia and not for New Zealand. It was a lot colder than I thought it was going to be going into autumn. Luckily, I brought thermal wear. I wore that pretty much every day and the same shirt and two sweatshirts every day. Also, the sun set a lot earlier than I thought. So pay attention to that if maybe you're arriving in a new city after dark and have to find your hostel, which may or may not have happened to me.
Ah,
That was fun. I feel like I've been saying the number one thing. Maybe this is the number two thing. Have shoes that work for your entire journey. Know your foot shape, if you have high arches, if you have flat feet, because I could not walk. Like week 4 of my trip, I packed the shoes that were completely the wrong type for my feet, and I ended up having to drop like $300 in the middle of my trip on new shoes that actually worked for my feet. So
oh
that would be my
no.
big recommendation.
Oh, that is a bit of a blow. Oh my goodness. And were there items in your bag that you didn't end up using at all? I know even now at 50 years old, having traveled a lot, I get home and I unpack and I'm like, I didn't even use this. Why did I pack it?
Yeah, I packed really tight. I packed everything in a carry-on. So I did
Oh
pretty
wow.
well. It was just, I packed so many like tank tops and short sleeve shirts that I packed more so for the aesthetic than the function. And now
Right.
I will always let function champion.
I think that's a good idea. It might not be cute, but it's probably a good idea.
Yeah.
I'm guessing this trip really gave you a bit of a kick in the butt in terms of like life and routine and made you decide to do things differently. I'm wondering whether life has changed for you since you've got back home.
I think when you're traveling, you get to be so present. It is such a gift that you're only living moment to moment. I have 2-ish months for this trip, and that's all I'm in. When you get home, it's easy for the past and the future to start to creep in immediately
Right.
and to get overwhelmed. I found coming home really daunting, and I did start to spiral out a little bit. So I would
Okay.
recommend prepping a little bit for when you get back, you'll be changed, and that's okay. And you need to give yourself time to process and adjust to maybe being back where you started or letting everything that identified you back at home come flushing back. Luckily, when I got back, I did have another trip planned. So that helped the slump a little bit. But I would say trust that something else is coming. And immediately another job came to me. So I'm really glad that I chose to leave my job and shake up my life because my life is entirely different now. I have a different job. And now I know that I can shake things up whenever I need to. I'm never stuck. And I have more people I can visit around the world now.
Yeah, you do. I love that. And you were creating some content while you were traveling as well. So I'm wondering how that either benefited your experience or maybe took away from the experience. I know a lot of content creators feel like they're always thinking about, oh, instead of being in the place, they're thinking about, okay, what would be a good shot? Or I must make sure I get this shot today when I'm at this place. How did that sort of fall for you?
This trip was the first big moment where I really saw myself as content creator. What do I want to get? How can I plan for this and that? What am I posting along the way? And at the end of the day, the trip was so huge and long for me in this moment of my life that I let go of the pressure of sharing as I went and really filmed when I was inspired to. I filmed, photographed all of my food, of course, but I let everything else kind of go. And now it's just a giant observation and lesson of how can I maybe plan a little bit better next time? Are there shots that I really want to make sure I get next time? how much can I let go? Because at the end of the day, I would love to go back to New Zealand. So how can I hold this close to my heart in the moment? A daily folder, maybe, of what you've done on every certain day, organized in folders, maybe all your food pictures, videos organized in a folder. But I think it's a lot of it is allowing yourself to be messy, allowing yourself to figure it out. I saw a video that said, don't wait to find your voice, then share it. You find your voice through sharing.
Right.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I feel like we don't have to wait until we know. We don't have to wait until we know we're ready to fly. We just have to trust that we can. So that's what I'm working with.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. Okay. So now that you have completed this adventure, what is next for you?
I am semi-stationary for now, but I have an entire free month in August. So I think I'm going to plan another trip. I'm looking at Chicago. Ireland has still been in my head. But the gift of a traveler is that you'll never run out of things to do or places to visit. And so I'm excited to keep seeing what opportunities are available and maybe start working with some brands.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, I'll live my life and see what happens.
I love it. I love it. So before we get your social media handle so that people can follow your future travels and dig into your trip that you did to Australia, are there any other amazing vegan finds or experiences that you would love to share with our listeners?
Absolutely. I, of course, managed to find the vegan market in Melbourne. It was in Coburg. That was amazing. China Airlines had the most insane, incredible vegan food I've ever had on a flight. Yeah, the New Zealand one. They had a vegan cheesecake and a vegan ravioli. It was really impressive. Yeah, it was crazy. There was a vegan pie at Hobbiton. Thank you so much for having a vegan pie at Hobbiton. And that's something I would say for New Zealand too. There's often a vegan pie option, mushrooms, if you're into mushrooms. That the Z gas station around New Zealand will have a vegan pie option. So when we first landed, that was our go-to. It was really cheap. It was really nice.
Pies are very popular in Australia and New Zealand, aren't they?
Yes, absolutely. There's always going to be a veggie burger. Shout out to Pam's honey mustard pretzels and Coco Bella chocolate coconut water. Blew my mind. And I think we'll end on that, is the chocolate Coco Bella.
Amazing, amazing. All right. So, Kiara, how can people follow your adventures online?
Yeah, find me at Kiara Sylvie Durbin on Instagram and YouTube. I'm posting my New Zealand journey right now.
Fabulous. Kiara, thank you so much for coming back on the podcast. I'm so happy that your trip was a success and that so many positive experiences came out of it and you roll with the punches, and I can't wait to see everything that you get up to in the future. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It's been a real honor to be on the podcast.